having so much fun, and frankly, that was the point. So, the first entity, however you want to feel about this, I have to thank Mother Nature. Can we have a hand for Mother Nature, please? Because she is bigger than all of us, and she could have ruined this really easily. So we have to thank Mother Nature. Oh, I should introduce myself, I'm sorry. My name's Amy McLean Sauls. I am the Democratic Town Chair of the Town of Citrus. And actually, I couldn't be more proud to be that person. This is an amazing town. I'm very lucky to have lived here for the last 13 years, but I do want to say that, like some other people in this room, I am from New Britain. New Britain in the house! Woo! Okay, so Mary's from New Britain, if those of you may not know that. Okay, so thank you for coming. This has been a labor of love. We have had nothing but wonderful times with Mary Glassman as our first selectman. And all of you here, I think, proves that. Tonight was an idea and a vision of one particular person, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge him, and that's Tom Gilmore. Tom Gilmore. Raise your hand, Tom. He's the guy with the red tie. Can't miss him. I also want to thank everybody else who worked really hard to put this on. There were lots of you. It took a lot of time and energy to pull it off. I want to thank the Riverview. The Riverview did an amazing job with this tonight and cut us a huge deal because they know how important our administration is and our government is to their business in this town. And they respected that, and they were very happy to put this on. Thank you, Riverview. Friends and the neighbors and everybody who loves this wonderful town here tonight. Thank you for coming. It is overwhelming. There are people here from Rhode Island. There are people here from Greenwich. There are people here from Talent. That was their lieutenant governor. So we have people from all over the state coming here, and we're very grateful. Also want to recognize all the elected officials who are here tonight. We heard already from our Lieutenant Governor, Nancy Wyman. I'd like to recognize our Attorney General, George Jepson, if you could please raise your hand. Our first selectman, Lisa Hefner. John Hampton. We have another esteemed representative here, State Representative Sean Scanlon. We have our Selectman Chris Kelly. All right, Chris? Thank you, Chris. And we have our other esteemed Selectman, Sean Askin. But it really wouldn't be complete without also recognizing all of the people who serve on boards and commissions in this town, because honestly, that is what it's about. So if you are on, I don't care who you are, what persuasion you are, if you are on a board or commission or serve this town, please raise your hand or stand up. Thank you. Look at that. That's what it's about. Thank you. So I'm going to invite our first selectman, Lisa Hefner, to come up and give us a few words.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. I've already lost Mary. This is so typical. Where did Mary go? There she is in the back. It's my pleasure to be here with all of you tonight to honor Mary Glassman. Glassman, my good friend. I've had the honor of working with Mary very closely for the last 5 years, and I can't think of a better mentor, but more importantly, a better friend. So, Mary, it's my pleasure to be here with you tonight. The first time Mary approached me to run for office, I think some people have heard this story. The answer was emphatically no. Are you crazy? And to say I was reluctant is an understatement. But to ease me into this strange and wonderful world of politics, she said to me, Lisa, come with me to the senior center. And I want you to meet my wonderful, lovely, nice friends. They're going to love you. So I went with Mary to the senior center, and she took me around to all the tables introducing me. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can do this. And at the very end of the lunch, one of the seniors pulled me aside. She goes, Lise, I need to talk to you. And she pulls me aside and she goes, what the hell are you doing running against Mary Glassman? This is absolutely true. And it is actually one of my favorite stories. And the reason why it's so dear to me is because it really shows how well loved Mary is in our community. People are very loyal to her, they love her, and there's good reason for it. She has been a strong advocate for our seniors. She's put Simsbury on the map nationally, first bike-friendly town in the state of Connecticut. Give it up! And she's really engaged the community in public discussions of important issues, from everything from planning to what we want our community to look like. The other thing the story reflects is how willing Mary has been to encourage others, even reluctant others, to run for office and to serve our community. It's really about serving our community. I do want to point out that she did come to my rescue that day and actually spent several days trying to reassure people that I was running with Mary, not against her. But I know that John, Linda, and I, who've worked with Mary for so long, feel blessed to have had her advice and encouragement, and we learned from a true, true master. I'm not going to lie to you. The month of December was a little strange. When I marveled one day in the car with her about all that had happened and what it all means, she responded with the Yiddish word, "Asher." And it means it happened for a reason. Even though something bad has happened, something good will come from it. That's what that word means. I had to ask her. Many important goods have already come from that, and the first is tonight, with so many of you here to join in honoring Mary Glassman. The other thing that I've seen in the last 2 months is how many people in this community have come out and shown her love, support, and kindness, and how much it has meant to her and to me and to our whole community. It certainly brought home to me what a wonderful, wonderful community this is. And with that, thank you, Mary. I forgot, I'm supposed to introduce a video from Senator Chris Murphy. So with that, we will hear from our great senator from the state of Connecticut.
Who, by the way, one was coming, but his plane is still on the ground, so I'm really sorry he was to be here.
Hi, it's Chris Murphy. I'm so sorry that I can't be there with you tonight to celebrate my great friend, Mary Glassman. You all can talk about better than I her contributions to Simsbury, whether it be her work to bring some sense to land use planning, to keep the character of Simsbury, to invest in the great outdoor assets, whether it's the responsibility that she's brought to local budgeting. Everybody in Simsbury knows what a difference she's made. But you also know what a big difference she's made statewide. Mary's one of my oldest friends in politics. I met her first in 1998 when she hosted a meet and greet for Barbara Kennelly, who was considering a run for governor. And I was a young staffer at the state capitol considering a run for the state house myself. And I saw the leadership that she brought by, even at that point, convening people from all over the area to hear from from Congresswoman Kennelly. She's been a great friend of mine at every step of the way. When I was running and in the state legislature, where we were standing side by side on a lot of issues in Hartford, to her work as a counsel and advisor and supporter to me when I was running a long shot campaign for Congress. The fact that there was no one more important to me when I was running for the U.S. Senate. Mary was out as a surrogate for me all around the region and the state. Mary, I have a feeling that there's a new chapter somewhere down the road very soon in terms of your public service, but I know what a difference you've already made. A great leader, but more importantly than me, a great, great historic friend. So have fun tonight, and I know I'll see you all soon. Thanks, Mary.
Just like the Oscars, you know. Okay, John Hampton. State Representative John Hampton.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, Mary. Well, hanging out with Lisa and Mary the last few years, this Irish Catholic kid picked up a little Hebrew of his own. Tikkun Olam. How'd I do? The phrase Tikkun Olam literally means world repair. It is commonly used to refer to the pursuit of social action and social justice. However, few realize that the phrase and the concept began its origins in Kabbalah and the teachings of the 16th century mystic, Isaac Luria. According to Luria, in order to make room for the world to be created, God needed to contract. This contraction is called Tzimtzum. Kabbalists consider Tzimtzum to be a great act of love. God then created special vessels to contain the divine light God would use to create the world. However, God's light was so vast, many of the vessels shattered, scattering shards all over creation. While most of the light returns to its divine source, some attached itself to the broken shards. Many believe that those shards are all that is bad in the world, and these broken pieces in which sparks of light are trapped. Our purpose, therefore, on earth is to help gather the lost light. That's the entire purpose of the mitzvah commandments. Whenever we perform a mitzvah, we separate what is holy from what is profane and release the light within. Every day we have an opportunity to collect shards and release their light. Well, that is what Mary Glassman has done in her incredible career as a public servant. She has released light like the glorious Aurelia Borealis in the night sky. And we've all been beneficiaries of her light. And tonight we thank her for that, as if we could ever thank her enough for spreading that light, making Simsbury a shining city on the hill. A metaphor that has been used often in American history. It was Ronald Reagan who said, "I've spoken of the shining city all of my political life, but I don't know if I ever quite communicated I saw when I said it. But in my mind, it was a tall, proud city built on rocks, stronger than oceans, windswept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds, living in harmony and peace. A city with free ports that hummed with commerce and creativity. And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors, and the doors were open to everyone with the will and the heart to get there. That's how I saw it, and that's how I see it still." That's how Mary Glassman envisioned our city, our town, our Simsbury, shining brightly, and that is how she has left it. Those of us who have had the honor and privilege of serving as selectmen under Mary, Chris Gelly, Billy Gary, Anita Mueller, Helen Peterson, Mike Law, Lisa Hebner, knew that we were apprentices to a great master of public policy and government. It was like working with Michelangelo or Mozart or Albert Einstein. We all knew that we had been given a rare opportunity to study under a true leader, a visionary, and a trailblazer. Of course, Mary taught us all about the intricacies of government, administration, finance, and management. But more importantly, she taught us about what politics is all about, and that is people and human beings. Mary has left this town, a city shining on the hill. We thank her for sharing her bright light, thanking her for her incredible leadership of Simsbury. Mary, thank you so much. We love you, we thank you, and God bless you. This just in for the U.S. Senate from Senator Richard Blumenthal. A letter from Senator Blumenthal. I want to take this time to thank you, Mary, for your tremendous service and enduring contributions to the people of Connecticut, and especially to the citizens of Simsbury. You have become a committed advocate on countless issues and causes, a tireless and steadfast voice for creating better opportunity, prosperity, and success. You have served with grace, dignity, and courage, inspiring your colleagues, future aspirants to public office, and me. You've taken on challenges that others would not, ultimately improving the lives of your constituents. Your ability to create bipartisan consensus behind a common goal is so well respected and valued, so much that you could teach Washington what it means to work together and get things done. A trailblazer for so many women and working mothers, you have helped to crack the glass ceiling, expertly balancing family and community. In the nearly 3 decades that we have known each other, we have shared a desire to change our communities, our state, and the world. Whether it was Simsbury's chief elected official or as legal counsel at the Capitol, you displayed your passion to help others and to further good public policy goals. Cynthia and I wish you, Andy, and all the kids the best in your next chapter of your lives. Know that you have left Simsbury in Connecticut a much better place for all current and successive generations. I hope you will continue your strong, determined advocacy on behalf of the people of Connecticut, and I look forward to working together in the future. Signed by U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal.
Andy Glassman, can you come up, please? Does not need an introduction, but this is Andy Glassman.
It's great to know that not everybody in the room knows me. I think that means I've done my job 16, 19, 20 years, if it's all spread out. The one thing I want to say before I do what I've been asked to do is just to express my excitement and shock that there's been so much Yiddish and Hebrew spoken here. If our rabbi were here, he'd be very, very proud. So it's unfortunate he's not here. I've been asked to spend a few minutes and to sort of correct the record and take you on a ride on the Wayback Machine, because there have been a lot of stories over the years about how did Mary really start, and how did she get going at the beginning? What's this all about? How did she get into politics? I always call her the accidental politician. And if you listen to Mary, she tells one version of the story, and because she's a politician, you know it's not accurate. So I'm going to give you the actual story. And being a lawyer, I decided that if I stand up here and tell the story, somebody's going to say, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I believe Mary's version of the story. So what I decided to do is I brought a witness today. And so let's go back in the Wayback Machine, and I want to introduce the witness before he comes up here, but it really started in 1986, believe it or not. In 1986, Mary and I had been in Simsbury for 1 year. But before that, Mary was in law school, and that's where Mary and I met. She was in the class of 1986, I was in the class of 1985. And there was this kid that we sort of bumped into from time to time. Round glasses, big eyes, very sort of preppy looking. And at the beginning I was, who is this kid? And then he would say, hey Mary, how you doing? And then finally I got introduced to this kid. And this kid was from Simsbury. And coincidentally, Mary and I were in the process of moving to Simsbury. We bought our first house on Sunrise Terrace right near Latimer Lane School. It was a tiny little house, and had we thought about having children, we would have never bought the house because it was too small to have kids. And when we moved to Simsbury, there was this kid from Simsbury who decided he was going to run for state representative. And he was convinced that he had the formula to beat the Republicans that hadn't been beaten in 35, 50, was it 100 years, something like that. But he knew that if you had a great message, and you could tell a great story, heartfelt story, and you were sincere, and if you knocked on every single door in the town of Simsbury, and you looked at them with those big eyes and those round glasses, there was no way that people wouldn't vote for you. And when we moved to Simsbury, he said, hey Andy, I need some help on this campaign. He goes, I've worn out 5 pairs of shoes already. I'm going door to door. I don't really have an organization. Could you help me? And by that point in time, I had gotten to know Mike Lanza, who's sitting here today, who came from Rhode Island, Newport, to be with us. Actually, Rhode Island and New Jersey. Get this, he works in New Jersey, and he lives in Newport, and he commutes. Go figure. Mike, were you in Newport today? Did you end up? He went home to see his kids, because he doesn't get to go home on Thursdays typically, so he wanted to spend some time with his kids. And he came back up here for tonight. And Mike Lanza ran for state representative, and guess what? He was wrong. Knocking on every single door in Simsbury, being a Democrat, being sincere, being a great guy, a great advocate for rights and issues and interests, doesn't get you necessarily elected, or did not get you necessarily elected in 1986. I think that story has changed a little bit in more recent years. But I want Mike to come up here because we're going to tell the actual story of Gaines Field. So it starts something like this.
Can I interrupt?
Sure.
There was a reason.
This is not rehearsed, so just bear with us.
There was a reason why I said hello to Mary and not you.
So anyhow, in 1986, Mike really did run a great campaign. It was an interesting campaign because it was an entertaining campaign. It was a human campaign. He took on Jim Fleming at the time, right? And Jim Fleming...
I lost. Let's go on.
And Jim Fleming, you ought to know, went on to a very distinguished career in politics and public service. And Mike has had a different career. But in 1986, Mike, after losing the campaign, decided that we needed to do a little retooling of the Democratic Party in Simsbury. We needed to be more open, more active, more energetic. And he became the town chair of the party. With everybody's blessing, including the current chair at the time, Dick Ostap, Mike Long, all those people. You want to say something?
Well, actually, I know this. There are some Republicans here, but I don't live here anymore. So I'm going to be partisan. I ran for state rep and I lost, and I had politics out of my mind. And a very staunchly Republican neighbor offered me a lot, and I bought it. And it was a pre-existing lot of record. And I applied for a building permit, and literally nothing happened. So I went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Zoning Board of Appeals granted me the permit. And the next day, the town attorney called and said their action was invalid. So I applied again, got the same call, got the same result, and I decided there were 2 things. One was Mary Glassman had been my press secretary as state rep candidate, and that was a big deal because Mary was a big deal. Everybody knew her. I knew her from UConn. She was the editor of the newspaper. She was kind of a well-known political person. So she was my press secretary. And so 2 things I learned from the whole thing. One was Mary was great. The second thing I learned was that the whole thing about the building permit is personal. So I got back in politics. Now you can take over. This is about Mary. This is not about you. So deal was, we studied the voter registrations and all those things. And we did the historic analysis of every election since 1944. And we kind of went through all of the reasons. And we figured out that a woman could win as first selectman. And in 1991, in early 1991, I went to Mary and said, Mary, I would like you to run for first selectman. We've studied the election results, we've studied the demographics, you can win, and there's this thing called local access cable, and you'll be a star. And Mary declined, just like Lisa just said. And the reason she declined was great. Amanda was an infant. This is not something I want to spend my time on. And Nate was an infant. And the other thing was it was just completely crazy.
So, we found ourselves a different candidate. And unfortunately, that didn't work out so well. Because 6 weeks before the election, we had a little situation which was very public. And it was unfortunate. It turned out to not be a true situation. But that particular candidate was, what would you say, convinced.
He didn't run again.
Convinced not to run, not to continue to pursue his campaign. And he graciously exited from the campaign. And Mike Lanza, who is now the chair of the Democratic Party in Simsbury, you could hear the snickers from the old guard of the Democratic Party in Simsbury saying, who are these young guys that don't know anything about politics, and don't know anything about local politics, and don't know how to run a campaign, and they have no first elected candidate. Mike called an emergency meeting, and that emergency meeting was attended by his cabinet, which was me. And I couldn't go out that night because Mary had a full day of work and I needed to help with the children. So the emergency cabinet meeting was at our house in our living room. And Mary, as you all know, if you've ever been over our house, cannot sit still. And if there is anybody in the house, and she gets this from her mother, Frances, if there's anybody in the house, and if they're sitting down for more than a minute, there has to be food, there has to be drink, there has to be more food, there has to be more drink, and she has to ask you 10 or 12 times if you want food or drink. So she kept coming in and out of the living room, and we kept going through the list of potential candidates, and we kept coming back to Mary. And so on one occasion in the room, in our meeting, we looked to Mary and we said, we've come up with the perfect candidate. And she said, oh, that's great. Who is it? And we said, it's you. And she said, yeah, right. And she left the room and probably washed a few dishes. And then we followed her into the kitchen. And then we brought her back into the living room and said, no, you really have to do this. And she said, no, I'm not doing this. Not your candidate. And we sat her down. And again, Mary's trained in both journalism and law and understands logic. So we said, let's appeal to her logic. So we sat her down and we went through the list of potential candidates. And we went through the list of qualifications that we thought you needed to win the election. No, we don't need to go through those because everybody needs to go home pretty soon. And we sat her down and she looked at the list and she nodded the way Mary nods. And she thought about it and she said, that's great. I'm not going to do it. But by the end of the night, after probably the third or fourth soda or coffee, I can't remember what it was, probably a couple of cookies and cake and ice cream and whatever else you could find in the refrigerator, we brought her back in and we finally said, okay, logic is not working. So we sat down and we said, Mary, if you don't do this, Mike is going to be run out of the Democratic Party. I'm going to be embarrassed. We're never going to have any opportunity to do this again. I'm asking you as your husband, would you do this? And Mary looked at me and she looked at Mike and she said, on one condition, you have to promise me that I will not win this election. And Mike, pulling out the old style of the campaign style, the big eyes and the round glasses, stood up and said, Mary, I promise you there is no way that you will ever win this election. And I think what was interesting, and I'll wrap up really quickly, but what was interesting is it was a convergence of a lot of different things. Part of it was the Republican incumbent at the time had some issues with some public style issues. I'll leave it at public style issues. The convergence of that, plus the growth of SCTV as a vehicle for people to run campaigns, was unknown. So thank you, SCTV, for doing all that you do. There was also the fact that this town is blessed to have a lot of very strong women, a lot of women that are career-minded and family-minded and understand that you can be both. A community that's also involved with their church or synagogue, socially conscious, involved in fundraising activities, and Mary was involved in all of those things. So if you take all of those elements, and that's really the analysis we went through, that if you appeal to sort of the New Wave Simsbury, this goes back to 1986 New Wave, the New Wave Simsbury resident, the New Wave Simsbury female, the New Wave Simsbury informed men that are married to the informed women, that you can actually intellectually appeal to people in a way that really was not done before in the town of Simsbury. And I think it sort of ushered in a new opportunity in this town, and I think it's continued. And I'm very proud, frankly, and I think Mike is, right, Mike? Hold on, don't say anything now.
Very proud.
That we actually did play a little bit of a role in getting her started. But at the end of the day, frankly, I've been on a long ride with Mary. We've been married 30 years. At the end of the day, there's really, and I can attest to this, and I don't need a witness, there's only one Mary Glassman. And I've been very proud to call her my wife for 30 years, my partner, and to watch her grow into the role. And she grew immediately into this role. She ran a 6-week campaign and did a stellar job because she was honest, because she was who she is and who she is all the time. And I think I'm blessed, and I hope you feel blessed that over these, really now, our son Sam is 22, so over these 22 years of her being in politics, that she has never been the stereotypical politician. She's always tried to do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because it's the expedient thing or it's the politically, optically the best politically thing for her to do. So I don't need to introduce her, but I think everybody would like to hear a little bit from Mary directly.
Thank you all so much for being here. It means so much to me. And I'm just sorry I'm not running for anything. And I just want to thank all of you for not only being here, but for your support of me over the years. It's a lot of different emotions. I first want to thank Tom Gilmore for bringing all of the people I love together in one room. So Tom and Karen Cortez, we all wasn't so good until they said it was an open bar, free beer. I'm just saying, I just really want to say a lot of different things. So first, let me introduce my family, my mom Frances and my father Bob, my brother Rich, my sister-in-law Beth, and my sister-in-law Patty. to be fair, and to believe that you can make a difference. And the importance of education. And education has always been a really important thing for me and my siblings. And we grew up when I was 4 and my brothers were little, my dad died, and my mother remarried my stepfather. And the one thing that made a difference in our lives was our education. And we've been really fortunate, and that lesson has always stuck with me. I want to thank my friends from New Britain who are here. I hear there's a race for mayor in New Britain. I loved growing up in New Britain. I love the city. I love the diversity, and it's always stayed with me. I want to thank Mike and Andy and my friend Adam Sheriff, who are here. Come on up. Group hug. I'll never forgive them. I had a perfectly nice practice, and I was making a lot of money, and they made me run for office. And they promised I wouldn't win, and I did. So damn them. I want to thank all my friends who are here, Joan and Evelyn and Kathy, and my neighbors, Diane. You know, working full-time as a mom and trying to raise your kids. Thank you for taking care of my kids and watching out for them and not calling DCF, left them alone. And one time when Andy was supposed to be babysitting and Sam called 911 just to see if it worked. It's been really an adventure. My sister-in-law Liz is here. Liz, thank you. And Amy is here. And I want to thank you and all the support of my family. Liz is responsible for Lisa running, actually, because we were trying to find somebody to run for office. And I said to Liz, do you know anybody? And she said, well, there's this woman, Lisa, who's, very active in school. And, talked to her, and I asked Lisa, and she said no. And so I had coffee with her again. I want to thank those who served with me, Lisa, John, my good friend Billy and Ann Garrity, who are here. It was an honor to serve with all of you and everybody who serves in office. My friend Sean Askham, who's here from the other side of the aisle, thank you. I'm glad. I just can't wait till the Republican Town Committee sees that Sean wrote a check to the Democratic Town Committee. That's going to be really fun. So, listen, I don't have to give a speech. I'm not running for anything. I'm just saying thank you to everybody I love and all of you. The one message is that, I've been really blessed. I have had a great adventure in making a difference, and you all supported me throughout my career. And now I have another chance to make a difference in helping educate the poorest of the poor in the entire state of Connecticut and in the country. We all can make a difference. It's our responsibility to make a difference. If you see a chance to serve your community, you should serve. If you see a chance to say something's not right, you need to stand up and say it's not right. It's all our responsibility to educate our children, to look out for everybody else's children, and to make a community great. So thank you for your belief in me. Thank you.
I didn't go to law school, but if I did, I probably would have asked Mary to marry me, right?
Good night. Thank you.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.